All right, Larry Krueger here from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video. Pig and a Pickle, check them out. They got two locations. They're in Emeryville and Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week in Marin from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m., and they're open Wednesday through Sunday in Emeryville. Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Well, interesting story today. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN went on ESPN, and once again, he's talking up Sam Darnold. There seems to be a common theme that a lot of people are talking up Sam Darnold. Orlovsky went on Monday's Get Up show on ESPN and said that Sam Darnold is absolutely capable of taking the 49ers back to the NFC Championship game. He went on to say, I'm so excited to watch him if he's the guy in San Francisco with Brock Purdy a little bit banged up. Finally at a place that has the coaching, the offensive talent, the complete team to allow his talent, one of the best talents that we've seen come out of college in years. I'm so excited, and I think he could be the guy that brings them back to the NFC Championship game. So there's just so much uncertainty around the Niners quarterback situation. Brock Purdy played well enough to be the starter. He came in at center as a rookie last year after there were injuries to Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo. And Purdy's scheduled to begin throwing in early June after undergoing elbow surgery in March. We'll have a much better idea if the 23-year-old quarterback is going to make it back by week 1, middle of the season, or not at all this year, based on how he looks in a few weeks coming off this, when he begins to throw coming off of the surgery. So he led the 49ers. He made his debut. Think about Brock Purdy and what he accomplished last year, by the way. Played in the preseason and then didn't play till week 13. Steps in week 13 and leads the 49ers to 8 straight wins en route to the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. And then Hassan Reddick pulled his elbow on one of the first plays of the game, and that led to March surgery because he had a torn ulnar collateral ligament in his right throwing elbow. And so now his situation is very much kind of up in the air. Then you got Trey Lance, who was taken number 3 overall by the Niners in the 2021 draft, and he's coming back from a broken ankle himself, and obviously he's trying to make a comeback after losing out on a chance to, really gain starting experience last year. And then there's Sam Darnold, who obviously was recently signed by the Niners to a 1-year contract in free agency during, the beginning of free agency, the very first day of the legal tampering. The Niners signed Darnold with an incentive-laden deal. And a lot of people thought initially, man, he's going to be the third quarterback on the roster. A lot of people thought he was going to be on the practice squad. But as time has gone on this offseason, it's pretty clear that Sam Darnold, in the minds of Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, and others, is very much in this mix to be the starting quarterback. And if Brock Purdy can't go week 1, sounds like Sam Darnold might be the choice to go in week 1. Now, there's going to be a competition this summer. That competition is going to last throughout training camp and the preseason, and we'll see. This will, as Jim Harbaugh likes to say, the NFL is the ultimate meritocracy, and this will get decided on the field. But Darnold himself was a former number 3 overall pick going back ways, 2018 draft. But he's not old. He turns 26 in June. He's 25. He spent his first 3 seasons with the Jets. He struggled mightily in his 38 starts, and then got traded to the Carolina Panthers, and didn't necessarily play all that well with the Panthers either. But with the 49ers, you get Kyle Shanahan. And with the 49ers, you've got incredible weaponry. And, I think really what Sam Darnold needs, people will say, and Matt Miyoko said it this week and drew a lot of criticism, Sam Darnold is an impressive thrower of the football. He's got a good arm. Has always had a good arm. Miyoko went on to say he may be the most impressive thrower of the football the 49er organization has ever had, which has made an awful lot of people go, what? What about Joe Montana? What about Steve Young? Those guys are Hall of Famers. But I think Matt's not really talking about the nuance of accuracy and touch and timing and being on time. He's talking about horsepower. He's talking about big-time arm strength, driving the ball with velocity down the field. He's talking about arm strength in a vacuum. And that's what he's talking about when he says impressive thrower of the football. Now, in Darnold's defense, he is very similar to where Alex Smith was when Jim Harbaugh took over the Niners. Lots of different head coaches, lots of different OCs, no continuity, nothing to build on, learning new systems year after year. It's a staple of losing football. And Darnold is just like that. He's had 4 head coaches in the NFL in 5 seasons. He's had 5 different offensive coordinators: Jeremy Bates, Dowell Loggins, Joe Brady, Jeff Nixon, Ben McAdoo. I mean, he's had 5. Now this year, it'll be this 6th, the 5th head coach and the 6th offensive coordinator he will have had in a very brief amount of time. But with the 49ers, you got Kyle Shanahan, who's an outstanding play caller. You got Brian Griese, who really had a very strong first year as an NFL quarterback coach. And you've got, an elite running game led by Christian McCaffrey and Elijah Mitchell. And fantastic cachet of weapons, from one of the NFL's better tight ends and George Kittle to 2 big-time receivers and Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel, to deep speed and Danny Gray, to a chain-moving threat like Jawan Jennings, and others. They really have a nice collection of talent on the offensive side of the ball. And we're going to find out. Once upon a time, as I said, Darnold was the 3rd pick in the 2018 draft. He's not old. He played 3 seasons with the Jets, and the Jets are bad. But for Orlovsky to come out and say that Darnold, he thinks, can lead the 49ers to the NFC title game, it makes you think a couple things. First of all, why is he not saying that about Trey Lance? What exactly has Sam Darnold showed in his NFL career that makes you think that he can do it? But Trey Lance in 4 starts, you're going to immediately discount his ability to do the same thing. I think that's kind of odd. Darnold this last year did go 4-2 in 6 games with Carolina, but still very relatively low completion percentage, 59%, which is right in line with his career completion percentage. Threw for 1,100 yards, 7 touchdowns, 3 picks. The real issue with Sam Darnold, really since he was in high school in San Clemente, is the interceptions, the turnovers. He's now had 56 NFL starts. He's 21-34 in those 56 starts. How much of that is the Jets and the Panthers? How much of that is Sam Darnold? He's got a 59% completion percentage. That's not particularly high. 61 touchdowns, 55 career interceptions. This guy threw a lot of interceptions at USC. Now, he is a good athlete. He does move well. He is a big guy with a strong arm, 6'3", 225. He definitely is a guy who can throw the ball. As they say, he can spin it. But that's really not been his issue. His issue has been kind of an elongated release, which a lot of people feel has led to defenders being able to break on his ball maybe a half second quicker than the average quarterback in the league. That could have something to do with his 55 interceptions. He's got 55 interceptions in 56 career games. The guy basically throws an interception in every game he plays in. So why is it that Dan Orlovsky is so glowing about Sam Darnold and didn't have anything to say about Trey Lance? I find that to be really, really interesting. The other thing I think is really interesting is not just that. It's also Ian Rappaport went on the Pat McAfee show and talked more about his report of Trey Lance being traded. And Rappaport, to quote Rappaport, he says, "I think I was on this show, when I said something like there was a very real chance that Sam Darnold was going to be the starter week 1, and I got a lot of pushback from people there." And one of McAfee's co-hosts says, "In the building or like Niner fans?" And Rappaport responded, "In the building. Like, why would you discount Trey Lance?" And I'm like, I get it, but whatever Trey Lance is going to be, we haven't seen it yet. And then Rappaport went on to say, when I go through the draft, I basically call everyone in my phone. I was talking to an OC whose team was looking for a quarterback, and he'd done all the quarterbacks, and he was like, Darnold probably looked as good last year for stretches as I've seen him. Towards the end, he looked pretty decent, pretty good. So, it's an interesting situation right now. People are talking. Kyle Shanahan has talked up Sam Darnold. Matt Mayoko said that Sam Darnold is as good a thrower of the football as the 49ers organization has ever seen. Now you got Dan Orlovsky talking him up. You have Ian Rappaport kind of backtracking on his trade report, but then when it got time to talk about, who's, later in the video, Rappaport goes on to talk about this hypothetical situation where Brock Purdy potentially misses time in the beginning of the year. And he went on to say that Darnold would be starting, and says that it would be interesting if Sam Darnold would continue to be the starter, even if Brock were healthy. No mention of Trey Lance. None. No mention that Trey Lance could beat out Sam Darnold. It's like it's assumed by everybody that Sam Darnold, who's a failed third pick overall in his own right, is easily going to beat out Trey Lance. I mean, and at the end of this whole thing with McAfee, you hear Rappaport say, the 49ers have to see what Trey is. And I just think it's amazing. I mean, it's like Trey has played 4 games, but we're already super skeptical about what he is. But Sam Darnold has played 56 games. He's turned it over a ton, 55 interceptions, 21-34 record. And yet Ian seems to feel like he's going to be the starter week 1. Orlovsky, who's a former quarterback in his own right, seems to feel like he's going to be the quarterback week 1. Kyle Shanahan described Sam Darnold's skill set as good as he's seen, like, ever. So you put his skill set up against anybody's, that's lofty praise. I mean, Orlovsky offered tempered praise, moderate praise, but what Shanahan has said about him is overwhelming praise. When you consider the stats and you consider that he's completed less than 60% of his passes, he's got a sub 500 record, he's got nearly as many interceptions as he does touchdowns. So we're just blaming all of that on the Jets. That's just all on the Jets and Panthers, and none of it was on Sam Darnold. Suddenly he's going to show up in San Francisco and he's going to slay Trey Lance and be so good as a starter that the Niners may not even consider going back to Brock Purdy. And all these NFL prognosticators have this total belief that Sam's going to lead the Niners, start for the Niners. And even though he's been a disaster train wreck in 2 different spots with Carolina and the Jets, suddenly he's going to come to San Francisco, and Orlovsky can picture him leading the 49ers to the NFC Championship game. I mean, this is pretty incredible stuff when you really think about it, that people are speaking this highly of Sam Darnold. So once again, it's a wait and see situation. We're not going to find out till these guys hit the field in training camp. At that point in time, Sam Darnold and Trey Lance will engage in some form of a competition. Based on what I've seen, I would expect Trey Lance to win that competition and maybe win it easily. But, man, there's an awful lot of people who feel like it's going the other way. There's an awful lot of people who feel like Sam Darnold is going to win that job. And it just feels like Darnold has momentum, and that there's a belief in his skill set that does not exist for Trey Lance. Folks, you know what that means? It means July and August are going to be riveting. And the day-to-day from 49er camp on Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance, or Sam Darnold and Trey Lance and Brock Purdy versus each other, or, who's the Niners starter today, and what did this guy say, and what did that guy say, and what are the players saying, and what's Kyle saying, what are the quarterbacks themselves saying? I mean, it is going to be juicy, because I see a competition where Trey Lance wins easily, and plays well, and challenges Brock Purdy's starting hold on the quarterback job, the number 1 quarterback job. Other people don't see it that way. They see Trey as a totally unproven entity. that will not be able to beat out Sam Darnold. And now we're hearing people optimistic that Sam Darnold can potentially get off the canvas in his own failed NFL career and actually stand up and lead the 49ers through the NFC playoffs and to the Super Bowl. It's an amazing turnaround if you look at the opinions that we've seen on Sam Darnold in a very short amount of time. So chalk it up. Dan Orlovsky thinks Sam Darnold can lead the Niners to the Super Bowl. We're going to find out soon enough if it's possible, but it is awfully interesting that there are so many people that appear to be in the Sam Darnold camp in this competition this summer with Trey Lance. All right, that does it for our 49er video. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the show. Check them out in Emeryville and Corte Madera. And thanks to all of you for being supporters of the Krug Show on YouTube.